What if I told you that a single institution, founded 2 millennia ago, has not only shaped the very bedrock of Western civilization, but continues to influence billions of lives, governments, and cultures across every continent? For over 2,000 years, this one belief system has inspired emperors, built magnificent cathedrals, ignited revolutions, and comforted countless souls. Today, we're not just tracing timelines, we're peeling back the layers of history to understand how Catholicism, from its humble beginnings to its global dominance, became one of the most enduring and impactful forces the world has ever known. Our story begins not in grand palaces or fortified cities, but in the dusty landscapes of the Roman province of Judea around the 1st century AD. This wasn't just a new philosophy, it was a radical message of love, forgiveness, and a kingdom not of this world, delivered by a man who would soon be revered as the Son of God. The early Christian community, a small, often underground movement, was born from this seed. These weren't powerful figures. They were fishermen, tax collectors, and ordinary people who found extraordinary hope in Jesus' message. But this new faith wasn't met with open arms by everyone, especially not by the mighty Roman Empire. Early Christians faced brutal persecution, forced to practice their faith in secret, often meeting in catacombs beneath the city. They were scapegoats for disasters, their steadfast refusal to worship emperors seen as an act of treason. Lions in the arena, crucifixions, and public burnings were not uncommon fates. Yet, despite the terror, or perhaps because of it, the faith spread like wildfire through the empire's vast network of roads and cities, whispered from person to person, family to family. Then, a seismic shift occurred in the 4th century. Emperor Constantine, a man vying for control of the vast Roman Empire, reportedly had a vision before a crucial battle. He saw a cross and heard the words, "In hoc signo vinces." In this sign, you shall conquer. He won that battle, and his subsequent conversion, whether purely spiritual or politically astute, changed everything. Suddenly, the hunted became the embraced. From being an outlawed sect, Christianity transitioned to a tolerated, then favored, and eventually the official religion of the Roman Empire. This wasn't just a minor policy change. It was like switching the main power grid for an entire continent. Churches began to rise from the ground, bishops gained influence, and the once persecuted faith started its incredible journey towards global dominance. With its newfound acceptance, the Christian community faced a monumental task: how to organize and define itself. This era saw the development of fundamental doctrines, the core beliefs that would define Catholicism for centuries. Councils were held, often heated debates erupting over the very nature of Christ, the Trinity, and other theological complexities. These weren't just abstract arguments. They were attempts to solidify what Christians believed and why. Crucially, Rome, the ancient capital of the empire, began to emerge as the central seat of authority. Peter, one of Jesus' closest disciples, is traditionally believed to have been martyred and buried in Rome. This connection, along with the city's historical importance, helped establish the Bishop of Rome, the Pope, as the primary leader of the entire Christian world. The concept of the papacy as the spiritual successor to Peter and the ultimate earthly authority in the Church became a cornerstone of Catholicism. Key figures like the apostles themselves, and later influential thinkers known as the early Church Fathers, brilliant minds like Augustine and Jerome, shaped these theological foundations. They wrote extensively, interpreted Scripture, and defended the faith against various challenges, laying down essential traditions that are still observed today. However, as the Church grew, so did geographical and cultural differences. The Roman Empire had split into Western and Eastern halves, and the Church followed suit. In the East, the Byzantine Empire flourished, with its own rich theological traditions, language, Greek, and unique expressions of faith. In the West, Latin was dominant, and the Pope's authority became increasingly centralized. Disagreements over doctrine, papal authority, and even minor ritual practices accumulated over centuries. The Great Schism, a dramatic mutual excommunication between the Pope in Rome and the Patriarch of Constantinople, formally divided Christianity into two major branches, Catholicism in the West and Eastern Orthodoxy in the East. It was a heartbreaking moment, a family torn apart, and a division that largely designed to inspire awe and devotion. They were the greatest artistic and engineering achievements of their time, built through generations of collective effort, a testament to faith. But even this powerful institution wasn't immune to problems. As the Church grew wealthier and more influential, it also became susceptible to corruption and abuses. Imagine a system where spiritual favors could be bought and sold. The sale of indulgences, where people could pay money to reduce their or their loved ones' time in purgatory, became a particularly glaring example of this. Simony, the selling of church offices, and nepotism, appointing relatives to positions, were also rampant. These practices, though condemned by many within the Church itself, contributed to a growing wave of dissatisfaction among ordinary people and intellectuals alike. The faithful began to question the integrity of their spiritual leaders. This simmering discontent, like a pressure cooker slowly building steam, would eventually reach a boiling point, leading to one of the most transformative periods in Christian history. The 16th century arrived like a thunderclap, bringing with it a profound upheaval that would shatter the religious unity of Western Europe. Enter Martin Luther, a German monk whose actions would spark a revolution. Luther wasn't trying to destroy the Church, he was simply trying to reform it. His primary concern was the sale of indulgences, which he saw as a perversion of true faith. In 1517, he famously nailed his 95 Theses to the door of a church in Wittenberg,
challenging papal authority and many long-held church practices. Luther argued for sola scriptura, Scripture alone, sola fide, faith alone, emphasizing that salvation came through personal faith in Jesus Christ, not through good works or the intercession of priests. This message resonated deeply with many who felt burdened by the Church's demands and perceived corruption. What started as a theological dispute quickly exploded into a widespread movement known as the Protestant Reformation. Princes saw an opportunity to gain more power from the Pope, and ordinary people yearned for a more direct, personal relationship with God. Europe was plunged into decades of religious wars, forever altering its political and cultural landscape. The Catholic Church, caught off guard by the speed and intensity of the Reformation, initially struggled to respond. But it wasn't going to roll over. It launched its own robust response, a period known as the Counter-Reformation or the Catholic Reformation. This wasn't just about fighting back, it was about internal renewal. The Church focused on cleaning up its act, addressing many of the abuses that Luther had highlighted. A critical moment in this Counter-Reformation was the Council of Trent, which met sporadically between 1545 and 1563. This council was a huge undertaking, bringing together bishops and theologians to clearly define Catholic doctrine, address criticisms, and implement reforms.
It reaffirmed core Catholic beliefs, like the importance of both faith and good works, the 7 sacraments, and the authority of the Pope. But it also put an end to the sale of indulgences, mandated better education for priests, and emphasized spiritual discipline. Alongside this internal reform, the Church launched renewed missionary efforts, sending orders like the newly founded Jesuits to spread Catholicism across the globe, reaching new continents like the Americas and Asia, ensuring its enduring global presence. The story of Catholicism doesn't end with the Reformation. In fact, the modern era has presented its own unique set of transformations and challenges. As the Enlightenment championed reason and science, and secularism began to gain ground, the Church found itself grappling with a world that was increasingly questioning traditional authority and religious dogma. Then, in the mid-20th century, a pivotal moment arrived, the Second Vatican Council, held from 1962 to 1965. This wasn't just another council. It was a radical reimagining of the Church's relationship with the modern world. Imagine the Church opening all its windows, letting in fresh air, and having an honest conversation with itself and the world. Vatican II introduced significant reforms, including allowing the Mass to be celebrated in local languages, the vernacular, instead of exclusively Latin, making worship more accessible and understandable to ordinary people. It fostered ecumenical dialogue, reaching out to other Christian denominations, seeking common ground rather than focusing on divisions. Today, Catholicism continues to evolve and adapt. The Church addresses critical challenges facing humanity: poverty, human rights, climate change, and war. Despite all the historical twists and turns, the controversies, and the constant need for renewal, Catholicism remains a monumental force. Its global presence continues to grow, particularly in the Southern Hemisphere, reflecting its enduring influence and its unwavering commitment to spreading the gospel. It's a living, breathing history, continually shaped by the past, responding to the present, and looking towards the future.
Thanks for watching The History. Subscribe for more history.